Charlie Kirk did a segment on AOC, which of course, that's one of the right's biggest hobbies is dunking on AOC, right? Of course. But this time it was interesting because it was surrounding free speech and what AOC had to say about media disinformation campaigns and how the government should respond. So let's take a look and let's discuss it.
AOC basically saying, all that media stuff, social media, your ability to say stuff I don't like, that's the real problem. AOC basically pinpoints that media literacy is the true problem in our country. And we're going to have to figure that out to rein in the media environment in our country. Play cut 88.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation.
So basically, if you have opinions that she does not like, she wants to loop you into misinformation and disinformation. Look, freedom of speech it's amazing that we have actually been able to keep freedom of speech for this long as a country. Freedom of speech is something that we have talked about many times here in this program. It is moral, but it's difficult. It's difficult because powerful people are constantly challenged when you allow freedom of speech. When you don't allow freedom of speech, like in North Korea or in China, and you challenge powerful people, you disappear. And so freedom of speech is the most important thing. Now, what AOC might consider disinformation, what AOC might consider misinformation, we consider ulterior viewpoints. When all of a sudden they start to expand the guidelines this dramatically, and look, the answer to people being incorrect or the answer to people being wrong, like her, is more speech. I'm not advocating for a law when we were in power, when we had the White House and the Senate and Congress to go censor socialist voices. That would be wrong. That would only empower them, actually. And it wouldn't be moral in any way, shape, or form around it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing what most people with totalitarian impulses almost always do. Shut up the guy that challenges your power.
And the rest of the world gets this too, Charlie. We've seen international figures from around the world in the last few days point the finger at big tech in America and say that is a very dangerous precedent and should not be the culture we're accepting. We're hearing that from Australia, France, Germany, Russia, Poland, Mexico, just to name a few. And that number only continues growing by the minute. So it's amazing to me that we are the stand for free speech in the world, supposedly, based on our Constitution and the way that we've governed our people for so long. But now it's the rest of the world telling us you made a huge mistake. We're looking to you for leadership on this issue, and it's time to step up.
That is so incredibly true. And if we do not have speech, which AOC wants to go after because she considers it to be disinformation, then we don't have a civilization. We put up with a lot of disinformation the last couple of years. The entire Mueller Russia hoax, the entire thing was disinformation. We put up with it. We tried to win the argument, which I think we ended up winning because we had better ideas and we had truth on our side. Whereas they want to, they are indulging in very dangerous totalitarian impulses. Let me just tell you something, AOC, that you might feel like you run the Democrat Party. You might feel like you have all the cards, but when the corporate Democrats are in control, which they are, they're going to want to shut you up next. If they shut us up, which they basically have through Parler and through Amazon Web Services and all this stuff, and a lot of our voices have been severely muted, you think they're going to continue to allow you to gallivant talking about how entrenched corporate Democrats have to go? You trying to think that you're not going to be shut up or silenced, AOC? They want you shut up sometimes even more than us because you're an annoyance in their own caucus. And yeah, they use some of the energy and the enthusiasm of the Democrat socialist movement to try to get in power in certain parts of the country, but they consider you a threat. So be careful, AOC, trying to go after freedom of speech because the corporate Democrats, they are not ideological. They just want insider deals that allow their companies to get significantly richer. So keep that in mind, AOC.
Okay, so a couple of things here. Charlie is right about some things, and he's wrong about a few things. By the way, the title of this video was AOC proves she hasn't read a book, in parentheses again. I don't know if this is a series for him or what. He's done at least one other of these videos. The right, they really just love dunking on AOC as a default position, which in and of itself is ridiculous. Like, that's the best you can do is like, oh yeah, let's attack AOC. So it does get ridiculous. However, he is right about a few things in this instance. Okay? So, of course, credit to who credit is due. If somebody gets a position right, even if it's someone who I don't agree with or who puts out bogus videos or bogus points usually, if they get the position right, I'm going to give them credit for it. Now, that being said, there were two things that he said that were correct, that stuck out to me. And there was a couple other points that he made that were just rich. We'll get to those in a minute. So, number one, he says, it's amazing freedom of speech has lasted this long. And that, basically censorship is not the answer to our problems. We need more free speech. I agree with this. I actually agree. Now, to be totally fair to AOC, I don't think she was advocating for censorship of the media necessarily. I think she's more so talking about holding the media to account. But, I mean, I don't know how you do that without censorship. So, censoring media outlets that don't tell the truth, for instance, on like social media and stuff, is kind of a foregone conclusion if you're going to go down that route. So, I think Charlie was correct in his assessment, saying, "Hey, this is a bad idea." And if we were start controlling people's, saying that people were, oh, this is misinformation, this media is disinformation, they start labeling that as such, then yes, that would be authoritarianism and totalitarianism, Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, Newsmax and The Blaze, and they're just wrong. They're wrong. They're lying. That is correct. They are liars. And they are lying. But if you censor them, right? Or let's say you even One American News, so like the Charlie Kirk show. Oh, you censor all those guys, because they're usually telling lies, right? Okay, I'll allow for that. But what about people like Ben Shapiro, who I feel like gets the policy position wrong maybe about 70% of the time? And he'll get it right sometimes, like 30% of the time. But what if I feel like Ben Shapiro is a liar? Then do we say he's misinformation too, right? What about Kyle Kalinske, who mainstream Democrats hate? Even though he gets things right, in my opinion, like 99% of the time. One of the areas we actually disagree on was like Twitter. He was saying social media should function as a public utility. That was like the one area I ever disagreed with Kyle on. But everything else I pretty much agree with him on. What if they start censoring him because he says things like what the United States does about war? What if they start censoring my channel? And that kind of segues into Charlie's second point. If they want to shut up the right, don't you think they would want to shut up dissent in their own party? Yes, they absolutely would. They absolutely would, guys. Just imagine for a minute if we had social media how we have it now. Back in 2001 and 2002, when 9/11 happened, and we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. Just imagine. If I were to say, hey, they don't have weapons of mass destruction, they're lying, and Saddam is not going to attack us, that's a lie. Imagine if they had fact check on Twitter. They would have fact checked me and said I was incorrect. YouTube might have lowered my views or censored me or fact checked me and said I was incorrect. It turned out that was the correct position. But the common sense position in the media at the time was, oh, of course not. They're lying, of course. That's not true. It's a conspiracy theory. Obviously, we're going over there because of the reasons we said. It turns out it was all lies. All fabricated. All complete and utter BS. So, I want you to keep these things in mind when you're talking about censorship. And yes, QAnon is bad. is yes, these right-wing media people are radicalizing people, but is the answer to shut up free speech? Because if you shut up free speech on the right, you will shut up free speech on the left. So Charlie's correct about that. Now, where he gets it wrong is saying, oh, that's fascism and totalitarianism and dictatorship or whatever, the big word to use. Yes, it would be, but that's kind of rich coming from you because you just supported the coup. You've been supporting the fact that Donald Trump can overturn the election since the day that it was announced that Biden won, even though it is quite clear that Donald Trump couldn't. So, as far as, oh no, we don't want totalitarianism, we want freedom, I don't want to hear that from you because you supported overturning a free election, which Joe Biden won. So you like totalitarianism, Charlie, only when it's on your side. But you don't like it when it's on the opposite side. And look, I'm no advocate of totalitarianism. I don't support it. I don't support censoring people. But I will say that AOC's intent to do something about the media is correct. But what can you actually do? Unfortunately, without censoring people, not much. But her heart is definitely in the right place. I just think that the precedent that it would set is really bad. But Charlie Kirk, there is nothing good about Trump being in office. That was just an attempt to overthrow democracy. So to me, that's even worse. Like if we're talking about good and evil and we're putting on the scale, to me, that's worse. But I digress. So there's that. That's number one. Number two, he also says we dealt with a lot of misinformation, like the Mueller report in Russia. Okay, fair point. But you've been spewing misinformation on your show constantly, and you haven't cared. You're either so brainwashed that you believe it, or you're just okay with spewing it. And I don't think you're really that brainwashed, Charlie. I don't think you're dumb. I think you know exactly what you're doing, and you don't care because it's getting you views, and it's getting you paid, and it fits your agenda. So no, I don't want to hear anything about totalitarianism from you. Matter of fact, Charlie Kirk, we should start a petition. You know what? Change.org, right? /Charlie Kirk. Ban Charlie Kirk from saying anything about totalitarianism for the next 4 years. Oh my God. See, but so I don't really have an issue with Charlie's argument here. I more so have an issue with the fact that he's not principled. He's not principled at all. He was totally okay with Trump when Trump was trying to do it, when Trump was trying to be totalitarian and overthrow the government. But he's not okay with AOC trying to, regulate or censor in some form the media. Makes no sense. So, yes, he's right. The substance of his argument is right. I will give him credit for that. But, as usual, not principled at all. Does not have a principled stance. And it's totally hypocritical. But I will say to us on the left, please, whatever you do not advocate for any type of censorship. Because once the right is censored, they will use it on us next. And they've already done it. Like the Blue Scare podcast has been taken down off Twitter. Other people have been deplatformed or had their reach limited. And now, I do want to make it clear, social media in and of itself is not a free speech argument, legally. You cannot legally say, oh, social media, and that's the other issue I had with Charlie. Oh, look at what we're doing with social media. I tackle free speech. Social media is a private company. They do not have to abide by any free speech laws or whatever. They can set their own policies. That's you guys love capitalism until they start doing things you don't like. What happened to the free market, Charlie? But anyway, now I will say, yes, censoring people on Twitter and stuff does go against the spirit or the ideal of free speech. And it's definitely concerning. I'm not dismissing it at all, but there's no legal argument to say that Twitter can't deplatform Parler or whatever. I mean, as bad as a president as I think that sets, hey, listen, who cares? Like, not who cares, because I do care. But what I mean is, you can't do anything about it. You know? Like, what can you do? Nothing, really. So, we can't do anything about it either. A lot of left-wing outlets have been taken down. I've had videos taken down. Look, it is what it is. So, I disagree with that, saying that that's an attack on free speech from, as far as like from a legal standpoint. But from a principle standpoint, yeah, it is an attack on free speech. So he's kind of right there, kind of wrong, but anyway, yeah, don't advocate for censorship. If they do it to the right, they will most certainly do it to the left.